They were the kind of kids who didn't care about rules. They parked in the fire lane, stole sunglasses just because they could, skipped class to do cocaine in a Range Rover their parents didn't know they had. They called their rich parents by their first names and joked about being nihilists, even though none of them had ever suffered. Chase had the big idea. Let's stay after closing, just to see what happens. No one argued. They slipped behind a display at Nordstrom before security did the final sweep. It was easy. Too easy. When the lights dimmed and the metal gates locked, Chase grinned. Claire lit a cigarette, even though she had heard it was giving people lung cancer back in the 90s or something. Meanwhile, Adrian wandered toward the escalators, dragging his fingers along the rubber railing, watching it move like a slow treadmill to nothing. Kat took a picture for Instagram. Then something changed. A crackle from the intercom, static. Then a voice, flat and mechanical.
Mall closed. Exit immediately.
Claire exhaled smoke and laughed.
Or what?
Somewhere in the distance, a metal gate slammed shut. It sounded like punctuation. Then footsteps, slow, steady, measured. Not security. Security walked fast, impatient. This was different. Adrian leaned over the glass railing and scanned the first floor. It stretched below. White tile, fake trees and concrete planters. The vacant storefronts with their glassy, empty-eyed reflections. He saw nothing. Claire tapped Chase's arm. Written in the condensation of the railing, smudged into her own breath, were the words, "I see you." No one had written it. Kat laughed a little, but it was the kind of laugh that came before screaming in horror movies. They moved. Not because they were scared, but because standing still felt like an admission of something. They cut through the mall's corridors like a click in a coming-of-age movie. Too cool to admit that their hearts were pounding. It took too long to realize Kat wasn't with them.
Where's...
Adrian started, but then there was a new sound. A thunk. But something wetter, like a shoe stepping in a puddle. Then Kat screamed, but not for long. When they found her, she was on the floor in front of the sunglass hut. Blood ran out of her in a way that made Claire whisper.
That's a lot.
Her mouth was open, like she wanted to say something. Or maybe she just wanted to scream a little longer. Behind her, a man stood holding a knife. The man was tall, average build, dressed in the kind of drapery that made it impossible to describe him later. His face was vague, a placeholder. He took a step forward. Claire whispered.
Oh, fuck.
Chase turned. Ran. Adrian ran. Claire ran. Kat stayed. The corridors stretched, folded, rearranged. Nothing looked familiar. A Louis Vuitton store appeared where the Disney store used to be, and an Auntie Anne's pretzel stand materialized right in front of the Apple store. The floor seemed softer, like they were running on something that wanted them to sink. Behind them, the man followed, his footsteps calm. He wasn't running. Didn't need to. Adrian stumbled into the food court, panting.
Where's...
He turned. Claire wasn't with them. The sound of something hitting tile, hard. A body. Then the sound of something else. Something slick. Then her voice, softer than it should have been.
Oh, wow.
Chase turned around just in time to see the man pull the knife out of Claire's stomach like he was removing a thumbtack from a wall. She staggered, blinked, looked down at the wet, red mess of herself. "Oh," she said. "So that's what the inside looks like." Then she folded in half and didn't get back up. Adrian made a noise that wasn't quite a scream, but wasn't words either. Chase grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the exit sign that flickered like a joke. They made it halfway before the lights shut off completely. Darkness. Then the intercom crackled again.
Mall closed. Exit immediately.
Adrian was shaking.
Where's the exit?
Chase turned in a slow circle. The corridors stretched and twisted. Every path looked the same. A strange man's voice floated through the dark. Close. Too close.
You kids should have listened.
A wet sound, like something being wiped clean. Chase grabbed Adrian's wrist, whispered, "Run." Then they did. Chase and Adrian ran, not like rich kids running from consequences, but but like animals running from something designed to kill them. The mall twisted around them, stretching and folding. Corridors leading to places that shouldn't exist. Their lungs burned. Their shoes slapped against tile. Up ahead, a door. Unmarked. Beige. Maybe an emergency exit. Maybe nothing. Chase shoved it open, and they tumbled through. Silence. The door swung shut behind them. No slam. Just a soft click, like a mouth closing around a secret. The air was thick, buzzing. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, but something was wrong with them. Too bright, too yellow, making everything feel sunburned. The walls were covered in peeling, faded wallpaper, the color of old teeth. The carpet, a sickly brown, squelched under their feet. It smelled damp, stagnant, like a basement no one had been in for decades. Adrian put his hands on his knees, gasped, looked up.
What the hell is this?
Chase turned in a slow circle. The hall stretched in all directions. No signs, no stores, no more mall. Just this, endless beige. He touched the wall. It felt warm, like it was breathing.
We have to go back,
Adrian whispered. Chase reached for the doorknob. Twisted, locked. Of course. Adrian swallowed.
Okay. Fine. We just find another way out.
They started walking, then jogging, then running again. Every hallway looked the same. They turned a corner. Another hall. Identical. Then another. And another. The space around them seemed to shift, subtly rearrange itself when they weren't looking. Somewhere, deep in the distance, there was a sound. Not footsteps. Not a voice. Something wet. A distant sloshing, like something dragging itself across the damp carpet. The hum of the lights grew louder. A whisper brushed against them, curling into their ears from nowhere.
Where do you think you're going?
Adrian's breath hitched.
Who said that?
No answer. A shadow flickered across the farthest hallway. Not a person. Something else. Something tall. Bent at the wrong angles. Then a laugh. Software gurgling. Too close. Chase grabbed Adrian's wrist.
We need to move.
They ran. Hallways stretched. Doors led nowhere. The space around them twisted like it was playing a game. Behind them, something shifted. A slithering sound. A scrape. A breath. Chase didn't look back. Neither did Adrian. They ran deeper, deeper, deeper into the beige abyss. Not toward an exit, because there wasn't one. Not toward safety, because that didn't exist anymore. They ran because stopping meant facing whatever was behind them. The walls pulsed. The air vibrated. The hum of the lights grew louder, drilling into their skulls, into the softest, most breakable parts of them. Adrian tripped. Chase yanked him up, just as something scraped across the carpet behind them. A shadow spilled forward, stretching, spreading, unfolding from the floor like oil slicking its way toward them. It wasn't a person. It wasn't anything human. Too tall, too thin, its limbs jagged and wrong, its head cocked at an impossible angle. A smear of darkness in the shape of something familiar, but deeply, fundamentally wrong. Then it moved. Fast. Too fast. Adrian barely ducked in time. One of its limbs, long, sharp, curling at the end, sliced through the air where his throat had been a second ago. He hit the ground. Rolled. Chase wasn't as lucky. The thing slammed into him and suddenly he was airborne, flipping, crashing into a wall that felt soft and wrong, like the inside of something living. The thing laughed. A sick, bubbling sound like water gurgling through clogged pipes. Then it lunged. Adrian dodged. Chase didn't. It slammed into him, hands, claws, whatever they were, digging into his arms. It yanked him up, lifted him like he weighed nothing. The air turned thick, wrong, too full. Chase's vision flickered. The thing's face was close now, empty, hollow. A vacuum of light, of color, of sound. It was trying to pull him inside it. Adrian moved. He wasn't thinking, wasn't breathing. He just moved. There was a rusted, broken metal pipe along the floor. Some kind of debris, some leftover piece of a place that shouldn't even exist. He grabbed it, swung. It connected. The creature let out a sound that wasn't a scream, but more like a building collapsing. Deep, resonant, something cracking at the edges of reality. Chase hit the floor.
Move!
Adrian yelled, swinging again. The thing recoiled, pulling itself back, its limbs twitching, reforming, its darkness shifting like something trying to remember its shape. But it was slower now, weaker. Chase grabbed the pipe, swung too. The thing howled, it thrashed, twisted. The darkness around it frayed, peeling away in shreds of nothingness. One last hit. Adrian lifted the pipe, slammed it down, a wet, sickening crunch. The thing collapsed in on itself, curling inward, its form cracking like glass before finally shattering apart. Silence. Adrian panted. Chase coughed again, wiped blood from his mouth. They waited. Nothing moved. Nothing whispered. The hall stretched in every direction, quiet, humming, fluorescent lights flickering. They were alone. Adrian swallowed. He looked at Chase. Chase looked back. Then they looked down the long, endless corridors. Still lost. Still here. Maybe forever.